but because he loves what's behind him. We honor his self-sacrifice, his courage, his duty, and his love. As Jesus taught his disciples, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends.
Well, that was Pete Hegseth at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier yesterday in a moving speech lasting 6 minutes, got a rousing response from the crowd gathered there. If you've ever been there and could put yourself there during that speech, it was quite moving, as were so many of the various presentations throughout our area, throughout the entire state. I'm Randy Tobler. Welcome into Wake Up Missouri. Stephanie Bell in, and we have Drake wearing his Cardinals are on a ripping winning streak, right? Cardinals jersey today.
Didn't they win or lose last night?
They may have, but they're still doing well. I mean, they're like, 16 out of 21, I think. They've been good. And John Marsh, who attended the Capital Jefferson City presentation yesterday. How'd that go, John?
Well, it was good. Memorial Day service. He had the Adjutant General of the National Guard and a lot of lawmakers there. So, yeah, it was a good event, and remembering those folks who were lost in the service of the country.
Yeah, it was nice to see that the weather generally was reasonable most of the weekend and into even yesterday.
Cool, for sure.
Cool, but, at least it wasn't torrential downpour, at least in mid-Missouri all day. I think southern Missouri got their share, so down in the Springfield area. Reports of, I guess, some flash flooding here and there, but I don't think there was any of the wild hail and windstorms that we were afraid about? I didn't hear any reporting on that.
Yeah, we didn't get that, but boy, oh boy, a lot of rain.
Yeah, if you
not just southwest, but southern Missouri.
Yeah, I told you last time I was down there, I popped by Finley Farms with the family, and they've got a little bridge, and you sit out, and the water is usually just kind of, bubbling by. And I mean, if you haven't seen the videos on their Facebook, it wasn't
bubbling by.
Oh no,
whitewater experience there.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for you later. It was pretty intense.
Well, it was a good time to reflect on why we are able to have the liberties we have. Because so many have given their ultimate sacrifice for that. And all the same, we saw the shooting in South Carolina. We saw other violence throughout the country, various parties that erupted into escalated violence. And over in Liverpool, London, who knows, do we still know any motive about that guy that just used his car as a weapon of mass destruction? It was actually, I guess, like a minivan, looked like to me. It was interesting. The reporting said, a white man from Britain, a white man. Why would they say that in their reporting? I thought were they worried about maybe Middle East terrorism?
And I had heard, and I don't know, I haven't fact checked this, but I had heard that Liverpool is kind of a center of Middle East immigrants.
There are a lot.
So they might have thought we need to specify, since people would assume potentially something else. I don't know.
Hey, how about Team USA winning the World Championship in hockey for the first time since, was it 1933 or something? It was ridiculous. I mean, they beat Switzerland 1-0 in, I think it was overtime, wasn't it? Yeah. So you follow that closely, don't you, Drake? Being the sports, you're our resident sports dude.
I'm going to be quite honest. I had no clue about this. I have no clue what you're talking about. I'm about to look it up. I thought we already did this earlier this year.
Well,
Wasn't this something we did?
Maybe I missed it.
No, you could be right. I'll check it.
I don't know. Sometimes, you see something come through on your feed and you go like, oh, that looks current, but it was from, I don't know. Maybe that's right. It may have been.
Well, they knocked off the Swiss in overtime, 1-0, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even know the World Championships were going on. Team USA and everything. I wasn't aware of that. And then, some other news. We had Alex Thompson on. Now, Alex Thompson is the guy who, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, called out. He's with Axios, and he called out. He won some reporting award. That from your colleagues, that's a nice thing to win. Certainly, when your colleagues give you an award. And he really called out the media and really did a mea culpa, I think, in behalf of all the media, saying, "Look, we blew it with the Biden. Wouldn't even call it a scandal. It was a media complicit cover-up, trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. Very unsuccessful. Everyone could see right through that charade." But he was on with Shannon Bream and really got down to, I think, what I think is a very, very frightening reality of what went on. Was it all 4 years? Was it 3.5 years? Was it, how long did this happen?
House in a second Biden term.
Well, this person went on to say that when you're voting for a president, you're voting for the aides around him. But these aides were not even Senate-confirmed aides. These are White House aides. These were unelected people. And one of the things that really, I think, comes out in our reporting here is that if you believe, and I think a lot of these people do sincerely believe, that Donald Trump was and is an existential threat to democracy, you can rationalize anything, including sometimes doing undemocratic things, which Isn't
it interesting? They were worried about Donald Trump being an existential threat to democracy, and you had a bunch of aides essentially using an auto pen to run the country.
And then they were going to hand the presidency over to Kamala, who was never voted on, in the primary by anybody, right? So talk about undemocratic.
Oh, wow. If that isn't the biggest argument for returning everything back to the states and getting out of the hands of the the people up in D.C., I mean, it's frightening. Although, I don't know, this whole business about it being a scandal, isn't that the wrong word? Isn't it more like we in the media think you, the people, are stupid enough that if we just keep saying something often enough, I mean, a lot of politicians do that, right? They just beat the drum. And if we just keep telling you the lie, no, Biden's okay. He's okay. No, there's nothing wrong with him. Remember Jake Tapper and Laura Trump earlier?
Yeah, they're pretending like we believed that the whole time. And that this is shocking and that we should be surprised. And we're like, we've been telling you this.
Yeah.
We knew. It was very obvious. So, but you want to return things back to the state. It sounds like things are going to be heating up in Jefferson City pretty soon.
Looks like there's a news conference this morning, right? Press conference with 10 a.m. Governor Kehoe at 10 a.m. And, I mean, speculation has it. Well, I guess, who was it? Was it Dave Griffith that told reporters that there's going to be a special session? I mean, that's what
I talked to a couple of the lawmakers yesterday, and they said the email had gone out from their leadership saying block out the 2nd through the 13th of June to be back at the Capitol in Jefferson City for a special session.
And interestingly, on Cindy O'Loughlin, the Senate President Pro Tem, her Facebook page, she comes out in favor of supporting the Kansas City stadiums.
She does, yeah, the funding package, which I think that probably would have gone through the Senate but for the failure of HB 19 in the House, which is the capital improvements bill that, of course, the House didn't take up and failed and had a bunch of, projects for almost every district across the state. Now, it's being speculated that both will end up in this special session, that perhaps we will get some of those capital improvement projects back, and that will be enough candy to get people on board for the stadium funding. I think it puts a lot of people in a tough spot. A, that feelings are still hurt, and then we're back here pretty quickly. B, you've got the Democrats who felt like they got rolled over on abortion and Prop A. Their feelings are certainly hurt, and I think they said nothing's going to get done. So how do you get some of them on board potentially, because you've got and then the House, right? The House voted down HB 19 because they said it was too much. How do you then stand up 2 weeks later and say, now we're going to pass all of those projects we said was too much and a big stadium funding bill? I mean, I don't know how you explain that.
Well, I think you said it. They're going to have to, I guess, try to thread the needle pick off a few of the high profile package out of HB 19, maybe do a watered down HB 19 with only essential things, buildings that are crumbling and whatever. And then you say, okay. And, Cindy O'Loughlin said, do we really want 2 albatross concrete stadiums sitting there as reminders that we lost big time professional sports teams?
And I think, doesn't she bring up like the Speedway?
Yep.
And we failed to act on the Speedway, and then they went over to Kansas. So, I think I do like the fact that we have 2 full weeks, because again, what this stadium funding package came up Tuesday of the last week of session, and people are like, we haven't vetted this, we haven't talked to anybody about this, we don't know the economics. So I'm hopeful with, they're saying there's going to be 2 weeks. I actually don't know. Somebody needs to text me on what the right answer is. I don't know if these then go to a committee and they get a full public hearing. At least they'll have more time on the floor, and hopefully people have had time to kind of put some, obviously we've heard from the Show Me Institute about their take on the stadium funding and their economics. Is there, are there other reports out there that say it does work out in your favor? I don't know. But certainly, having a limited number of topics. That's what happens in a special session, and more time. You have, I think, more time to kind of learn about the issue, debate the issue, really get into the merits of, what do we want to do here?
It occurs to me as I thought about this, I think there's a lot of people in Wake Up Family that are saying, I'm tired of funding billionaires. During COVID, I saw money concentrated in big time positions of wealth and power with tech, right? I mean, the box stores were kept open while mom and pop stores were closed down. And I got to thinking, maybe the thing for the owners of those teams to do, or maybe for Senator O'Loughlin and whoever in the House decides they want to push it, to go to the owner and say, you know what? We're going to, as part of this package, demand that the price of tickets and a beer and a hot dog and a Coca-Cola is indexed to your profits somehow. The more if you make, if you're making a 25% margin, you got to lower the price on these things for the people. They've given you a gift after all. What's in it for them? What about the people who don't care about football or baseball? I mean, think about that. Why can't they do that?
I don't know.
It's our money. We're giving them a gift. We're investors.
I don't know that your math is mathing.
Huh?
Like, if we add up the beer price and the soda price compared to Travis Kelce's salary, I don't know that you can lower the price enough, because people do you care if you're paying $10 a beer
Yes.
if you get to see Travis Kelce and a winning team?
Yes.
No, you
Yes.
don't.
Yes.
No.
Would
you rather pay $2 a beer and see a losing
say it right
team?
now.
Ask the Royals.
I'm going to say it right now.
Ask the Royals.
I won't go and pay that kind of money to see an athlete play. I'm sorry. I just won't do it anymore.
Well, the ticket prices are no bargain either.
That's the point.
For a
It's
family
ridiculous.
of 4 or 5,
Yes.
it gets pretty
I
expensive.
mean, they're talented. I'm not going to pay that, and I'm not going to pay $10 for a soda and $8 for a hot dog. I'm not going to do
you would
it.
pay that to see a concert because music is your thing. Just because music isn't your thing doesn't mean. I mean,
But you're not asking me as a taxpayer to support your Morgan Wallen concert. That's the difference.
well, we do have the Morgan Wallen concert in the Chiefs Stadium is the last place I saw him, and we wouldn't have places like that to have.
Let him go out.
concerts or
Let him
even-
go out on the grassy knoll in front of the pillars on Mizzou campus. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm just not paying for it anymore. What do you guys think? 573-874-9390. Well, it looks like we're back in gear. Glad you are too, and you're with us. It's Wake Up Missouri. Chris Arps at 6:35. The Daily DC Rundown coming up right after this.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
All you heard in the House was $1.5 trillion. Sounds like a lot, but it's eager in compared to the $89 trillion we're going to be spending over the next 10 years and the $22 trillion we're going to add to the debt. Their bill, I believe, actually adds to that $22 trillion. Again, that's averaging $2.2 trillion a year deficit. That's completely unacceptable. That's why I'm saying it's inadequate. We need presidential leadership to get on board with returning to a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending.
That's Senator Ron Johnson. Here's Stephanie Bell with the Daily DC Rundown.
What is the fate of the big, beautiful bill? Rand Paul also said he won't vote for a package that includes a hike in the nation's borrowing authority. Of course, that number is being floated out there as approximately $4 trillion. We saw, Randy, I think I reported, was it Friday, Thursday, that the markets had kind of tanked.
Yeah.
They were down Friday, too, because the bond market is totally freaking out after the passage of this big, beautiful bill in the House. The market certainly, especially the bond market, doesn't think it's big, or well, probably thinks it's big, but probably not beautiful.
Right.
So now there are a lot of questions surrounding, and a lot of things were added kind of in the waning moments before they were able to put it together. Of course, Mike Johnson saying it's holding on by a thread, encouraging the Senate not to tweak it very much. But the Senate, senators have opinions, and so what can they pull out and try to bring that number down without losing too many people, because of course we don't have many votes to spare.
Those are two hard no's right there, right? You got Johnson and Paul, and there's only, a majority of three. So, they can only afford, two more, because then thered be a tiebreaker with J.D. Vance. So, yeah.
Yep. So we will continue to keep our eyes on that. Also, you need to mark your calendars, not only for the Ashland Rodeo Parade that occurs in August every year, but Trump announced this weekend, he talked about how he's very excited for a June 14th military parade in Washington, D.C. that will not only mark the Army's 250th anniversary, it happens to be on his birthday, his 79th birthday. It will have troops, tanks, helicopters, and warplanes with an estimated price tag of $45 million. Speaking of spending. In more serious news, we're getting more tariff news over the weekend. We heard from the EU that it was set to go into effect, June 1st, a 50% tariff. Trump and them were talking. He was talking with the European Commission and said, hey, can we work something out here? So they kicked the deadline to July 9th. So not very much more time, but you got to wonder if Trump keeps imposing tariffs and then pulling them back and then imposing them and pulling them back, are those threats going to really feel real going forward if you kind of always know, hey, he's going to pull those back?
Yeah, unless you follow through with the threat, we all know that as parents, unless you follow through with consequences, the kids start learning exactly what that means.
I think some people are going to learn.
Yeah.
But we also have some news over between Ukraine and Russia. Of course, Russia rained down apparently 355 Russian drones with 9 missiles. Trump says he's not happy. He said he would absolutely consider more sanctions on Russia. Germany's chancellor said he and his country and other allies are no longer imposing any range restrictions on the weapons supplied to Ukraine. So that is coming to a head as well. Also let's see, when did he come here? King Charles arrived in Canada today. He's going to deliver a speech from the throne in the Senate chamber. Their Senate chamber has a throne. I guess that makes sense.
I didn't realize that.
But someone said you can't have the king sitting on a plastic chair, right? So,
yeah, probably not.
Anyway, so he is going to launch the 45th Parliament today. That's the third time in history that it's been done by a British monarch. Also, if you're headed to the airport, not only do you need a real ID, but today Southwest Airlines, Wednesday, will begin charging $35 for your first checked bag and $45 for the second.
And no more open seating.
Apparently not.
Let's see what Chris Arps flies when he takes Diplane when we come back on Wake Up Missouri at 6:35.
I think just local news is the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of bad stuff going on around me, but it's the most relevant to me.
billions of dollars, which is ridiculous. We do grants, which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard. But they're 31%, but they refuse to tell us who the people are. We want to know who the people. Now, a lot of the foreign students we wouldn't have a problem with. I'm not going to have a problem with foreign students, but it shouldn't be 31%. It's too much because we have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there. You have about 30 is that.
That's President Trump on an impromptu news conference yesterday on the tarmac there. And he is the content that keeps on giving. So is our Tuesday morning guest, Chris Arps. And we wonder if Chris thinks that at his alma mater, if they should disallow foreigners. Chris, what say you? Should we discriminate against all these good foreign students or not? Welcome in.
Look, Harvard, thank you. Good morning, guys. Harvard is a private institution, so they should be able to allow anyone that they want to come to their institution. But I do agree with the president when it comes to all of the billions of dollars of grants that they're getting, and they won't protect their Jewish students. That's an issue.
Yeah, it sure is. And especially in the wake of this, it was very interesting that the young Israeli embassy staff couple that were killed, he, even though he was born in Israel, was a Christian, and she was born in the States and was Jewish, and they were really apparently stars at the Israeli embassy and gunned down, executed in cold blood. I think that really brings into focus the utter blind spot that, and you don't know, is it willful or is it just capitulating to the culture on campus that these college administrators don't get it, Chris? I can't understand it.
I think it's the culture on campus, and I think what we've seen for a number of years now is that the far left, radical communist left, runs the Democratic Party. You see AOC and Bernie Sanders, they're going out having rallies. Thousands, tens of thousands of people are coming to their rallies. So I think they're beholden to those folks, and they're really kind of paralyzed because they don't know what to do. They don't want any more protests on their campus. They don't want any more attention brought to their policy. So they're really kind of stuck. And President Trump is sticking it to them and the other Ivy League and holding them accountable for the first time in a long, long time.
Chris Arps, who holds forth in an afternoon drive time show with Tim Jones, the Jones and Arps show every afternoon in St. Louis. Now, as a St. Louisan, what are your thoughts about Senate President Pro Tem came out on her Facebook page yesterday saying, hey, I'm going to support Kansas City Stadium funding, and I guess part of that package might include, minor league Cardinals funding. Where does Chris Arps land on public funding for private sports facilities?
You know what? I'm like anyone that's a sports fan. Look, you want your teams to do well in this era of sports. In order to do well, you have to have a new stadium so that you can attract a lot of money, make a lot of money at the stadium so you can pay the players the big dough. That's just how it works, unfortunately, in today's sports. But I have an issue, especially in troubling economic times, to have taxpayer money subsidize stadiums. And I hate to sound like a leftist, but stadiums for billionaires. And these people are billionaires if you look at the worth of their teams and calculate that in. So, look, I understand what the governor is doing and what, he's in a tough spot. This is a difficult situation to be asking for stadium subsidies, but you also don't want to be the governor that on your watch two major league teams crossed over the line to another state. So it's a tough situation. We'll see how it works out here in the special session coming up.
Yeah, I think Cindy O'Loughlin said whoever goes to Nebraska. Right. I mean, there's a benefit to having the stadiums. I guess for you, Chris, I mean, you co-host with Tim Jones. He's the executive director of the Freedom Caucus. This really can't get over the line without the support of some of those Freedom Caucus members. But of course, they've been some of the hardliners on, increased spending. Do they have an official position on the stadium funding?
I don't know if they have an official position, but my partner, Tim Jones, has his own personal opinion, and he's expressed that on the show that he is not in favor of this. We had Patrick Tuohy from the Show Me Institute on last Friday talking about this very issue. And one of the questions that I asked him you know, you look at other major sports teams that have relocated. The Cardinals, of course, went to Arizona. They left an entire state, an entire region. And so, of course, you're going to lose that economic benefit. But do you lose a lot of economic benefit when the team just moves across the border and you're in the same general area, same economic or same area? Do you lose a lot of economic benefit besides, or is it just a pride thing of losing your teams to another state?
It's hard to know. Chris Arps joins us here on Wake Up Missouri. What do you think? What's the word on the governor's response in terms of the emergency recovery from the 20 square block area there of decimation in the wake of the tornado in St. Louis, Chris?
I think the governor has shown leadership. He came to St. Louis, of course. There's a picture on the front page of the Post-Dispatch with him and Mayor of St. Louis, Kara Spencer, meeting. He's called for a declaration of a disaster so that the federal government comes in and helps. And I think that is needed. Look, the most devastating parts of St. Louis that were hit were North St. Louis. That is the African-American part of town. And I think unless aid starts getting here real soon, you're going to have people use that to say that that's the reason why the aid is not forthcoming, because it's African-Americans in North St. Louis. So I, for the first time a few days ago, really drove through the devastation of that area, and it is just amazing. And there's a lot of trees in that area, and just all of the downed trees and limbs and everything is just incredible. And the buildings missing roofs, it's just a lot of devastation. And these folks don't come from a big economic thing where they have a lot of money. So this is a very difficult situation here.
Chris, do you think this is, going back to the special session call, do you think this is an appropriate thing for lawmakers to call special session back for? Because we've seen the governor call special sessions on everything from money for Boeing, money for the car manufacturers, Eric Greitens and his aluminum smelters. What's your take?
Well, I mean, if this is based on strictly economics calling this, I think it's the correct thing to do. If you think potentially the state is going to lose millions of dollars in revenue of the teams going across the state, so I think if you look at it at that point, I think it's a good call. I think that some of the other things that weren't done, the $500 million in construction, I think that's going to be considered too. I'm not sure. You guys can tell me. So I don't think it's solely going to be on the stadiums. I may be incorrect.
Governor makes the announcement this morning, right? He's got his presser this morning, so we'll find out. 10 a.m.
Or that's right, 10 a.m. Yeah. Hey, Chris, are people making too big of a deal out of this Macron push slap yesterday? Or do you think it's a big deal?
I do think it's a big deal. Only, married couples, you're going to have your squabbles. Usually that's behind the scenes. I think the thing that makes this a big deal is all the speculation, which has been fueled by Candace Owens, of course, that the First Lady of France is really a man. So I think people are going to be studying that and look at his reaction and how he moved, and was like, man, if a woman hit him like that, would he move that far back? Man, so I think it's going to start fueling that speculation.
Yeah, I think it brings up a really good point, because people thought, like, if we saw that, like, from a man to a woman, people would be up in arms and say, you got to get out of there. Like, it's scary. And what is she, like, lots older than him and all of that? But I think he's responded.
What does a man have to do to get hit like that in public while you're about to get off? Yeah, what did he say? Give us the woman perspective.
I have no idea. But I think, people, even from the Republican side, that are saying, like, domestic abuse is not okay, and like putting your hands on someone else is not okay. And like, if that's happening, as the plane doors are opening, like what else is happening behind the scenes? Like, that's it.
Who knows?
It bothers me. I know that.
And now when I think about it, if you look back at some of the stories, I think there's been stories where he's had like Band-Aids and,
Maybe he was being stereotypical French guy and being too amorous and just oui, my dear, I want to kiss you before we get off the plane.
Maybe he was hitting on the stewardess. Maybe that's what it was. But
kind of Pepe Le Pew there.
Yeah,
There you go. Come with me to the Casbah.
Oh my God! Yeah.
On another note, it appears as though Donald Trump, he was very angry at Putin during that very conference that we played a little clip of as we were coming into this segment, Chris. And he said, "I've had it. What's happened to Putin? He's gone crazy." Well, I don't think anything's happened to Putin. I think that maybe Trump is realizing Putin is an ex-KGB agent who will stop at nothing to concentrate power and regain Mother Russia's great territory. And it appears as though Trump may be at that fork in the road where he either decides to throw all in and deliver on his promise of stopping the war by defeating Putin somehow, or just saying, hands off, Pontius Pilate, I'm done. You guys fight it off. Zelensky and Putin. Do you think that's where it's headed?
Let's step back for a minute and just look at Putin's history with the last 4 presidents. You remember George W. Bush said he looked in Putin's eyes and said that he saw his soul and that he said this is a man that he can deal with. You remember Barack Obama, the famous quote where he was with the president and Russia at the time and said, just let me win the election and then I'll have time to, negotiate with Vladimir. And then you see President Trump, who, wants, of course, to end this war. He sees the video and the pictures that we don't see and thought that he could work with Putin, said he knows him well and all that. And Putin just over the weekend did the largest drone strike ever against Ukraine. So Putin's mesmerizing powers of fooling people, our leaders, into believing that he has a soul is very interesting to me.
Yeah, but it puts Trump in an interesting political dilemma, I think, because this was one of his big campaign promises. Oh, I can fix the war in 24 hours, not a problem. And he's not delivering on that. I thought it was a stupid promise to make. But, what does that do politically?
I think they've got still sanctions that they can do. They can cut off Russia's money and its banking. So that is the final leverage that they have. All
right. Well, Chris, we'll see if that prediction comes true, and folks can listen to your program in the afternoons in St. Louis on the Jones and Arp Show. Hey, thanks so very, very much, Chris, for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
All right. So when we come back, a pro-migrant activist has turned from Democrat to Trump. We'll tell you why at 6:54.
This is Wake Up Missouri.
Well, we're back. It feels sort of like a Monday, but it's Tuesday. Hope your Monday was meaningful and restful. And
how long is it going to take me to get on the right day?
Yeah, I know. It's well, we got a short week this week.
Next Monday.
Yeah, that's right. You'll be back in the swing of it there. Hope everyone did take a moment to reflect on the why of this holiday just passed. I know I did, and got to thinking about what would the fallen be thinking about the current conduct of our political class, of our media. You know, after all, that First Amendment media right to be the guardian of, the powerful and the guardian of the people, looking after us and trying to root out abuse of power. That's really the purpose of that media, isn't it? And to keep the powerful in check, because it is addictive, that power. And, of course, people will do anything to hold on to their addiction. Try to get a can of Zyn from Drake, after all. I mean, it's like wrestling a bear. It just,
What do you mean? I got 3 on me. If you want one, just ask.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No, but you
get
just
a 3-hour show done in an hour and a half.
I found myself thinking about that. It's like, what would those brave soldiers who are in their graves now in Arlington and elsewhere around the country, or Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis and other, cemeteries, what would they be thinking? Is that what they fought for? Was now the media can't even be honest and authentic and truthful and really dig into both sides, right? I mean, they go after Trump every time anything is an opportunity for them to gotcha with Donald Trump, or for that matter, anyone from a conservative standpoint. But do they do that with liberals, with progressives? No, they don't do that. John, what's your thought on what's happened to the media in the time that you've been a newsman? I mean, have those values eroded, those standards, those expectations?
Well, the whole thing about journalism, at least in America, is to be a watchdog and hold those in power accountable.
Yeah.
And how is that? Ebbs and flows, I guess.
Yeah, but without regard for the powerful's, elephant or donkey, right? And I think that's what's concerning me. I'm fine if they want to go after Trump and call him out when he's wrong or he lies or whatever. But why is it so one-sided? That's the problem.
Maybe I have a rosier outlook in that I think...
What a surprise.
I think in the last 10 years, we've really seen the democratization of media and a lot of independent folks.
Oh, yeah.
And if you saw this this chart coming out, so I think... I think we were in a bad place for a time, but I think right now we're changing directions. And Clay Travis put out this map. I guess it came from the New York Times, but it's like a heat map of how much redder the country has gotten. And I think that's in part because people have, diversity when they can, listen to different points of view, and we're not all just hearing the same thing over and over, which is oftentimes lies. And so, I mean, I look at this map and I'm having a feel good, I guess, Tuesday. I was going to say
problem
Monday.
is, but if you look at that map, there's big blue spots, for instance, one of them glaringly over Kansas City, but others on the coast, of course, we know that, Northwest, the Pacific Northwest and the coast, and the Northeast, strong. But that's where population centers are, and those population centers hold huge amounts of power politically, right, because of the representation of the census and how that gets translated into the House of Representatives and districting.
That's fair, but I think people are waking up, and I think they're doing their own research, and I think it's encouraging.
And the polls are validating that Donald Trump, at least that compass, is close to being north in terms of the direction that the people approve of and want to vote for. I didn't get to that clip of this Arizona former pro-migrant activist who has turned pro-Trump. We will play that at 7:08. Stay there.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell, the Zimmer News Team, and your host, Randy Tobler.
I first voted for Bill Clinton and voted Democrat every single year until, November.
And what do you think of Trump now? What do you think of his policies on deportation?
You know what? I can't tell you specifics about his policies, but what I will tell you is that it was not for Donald Trump, we might still be living next to gang members because everything changed after he was elected.
So you feel a lot safer now that he's in the White House again?
I do, because he's taking it seriously.
Well, there is a former Arizona Democrat. This gal was a teacher who later on in this clip says that she was part of the like Teachers for Migrant Rights group. And it just flipped all around because migrants became gang members. There was violence in her neighborhood. And just with his election, Donald Trump's policies, new sheriff in town, the messaging made it clear. And they started either moving into subterranean, places, who knows, or they left, but they're not around anymore. And she says, when she addressed due process later on, she says, what's this about due process? We should have a different level of due process for people that are here illegally because we have the due process to live our lives in peace and in safety. And new polling out by the Rasmussen Group says that remains, the Republicans and MAGA and Donald Trump remain ahead by about 6 over and under, score-wise, 6 in polling when it comes to immigration, the economy. The only place that they're down, and this is something I can't figure out, is health care, down by 12 in that new poll. I'm Randy Tobler, Stephanie Bell aboard along with John Marsh and Drake Whitman. We are Wake Up Missouri. Our text line, 573-874-9390. Jack says, look at your own show on digging into the media, truly both sides. Don't know what he means by that. I think we do try to call balls and strikes. Hopefully that's, we're trying to do that. And I think Stephanie's right. We were talking about media, if you're just joining us now, how the people who are now in graves, having lost their lives fighting for liberty, for this country's freedom, for our national security, wonder what they would be thinking now in terms of what happened to those values, those virtues, those first principles that they fought for. Principle among them, a media that's honest and doesn't cover up a president's decline, doesn't cover up the fact that certainly if the president wasn't with it, they're with him all the time. After all, they were around Biden. They saw him. They knew they were with him close enough to know that something else was going on. Someone else was actually running the country. Yet they covered it up because they thought that Donald Trump was an existential threat. That's what Alex Thompson from Axios was telling the Talking Head shows yesterday morning. And, John, don't you find it rich that the media that was complicit with the messaging that, oh, Joe's okay, everything's fine, Joe's okay, now trying to make hay on it, Jake Tapper and this guy writing a book, the New York Times bestseller, and, well, they pulled the wool over our eyes. My God, we didn't see that. I mean, really? They look like fools.
In the news. Yeah, and it's back in the news cycle, so it goes to kind of the head of top of the page, as they say in the newspaper business, above the fold.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yesterday, various, I think the most, I don't know, down in the Springfield area, were they able to get to do their Memorial Day festivities? I know it was spotty rain in mid-Missouri, so I doubt yesterday they got that.
Yeah, Don said that it was like 8 inches of snow, rain in the area.
Yeah, crazy. Nathan was talking about the new Southwestern experience, going through some of the text here. He can tell you he's going to be taking Southwest Airlines, I guess, after they do the switchover. That's on Wednesday, right, Stephanie?
That is on, yes, that's on Wednesday.
So for those who don't fly out of their regional airport, Columbia here in Mid-Mo and Springfield, and you have to drive to Kansas City or to St. Louis, some will do that just for the experience that was Southwest Airlines. That's changing as of Wednesday. It was really sort of it was just a line in the sand that the executives were not going to do. But then I read that it's something like the income from baggage fees is somewhere around $4 billion or so. It's tremendous income.
Well, yeah, the first bag will be $35 and the second bag $45. Most people only fly with one checked bag, but certainly there'd be some instances where you'd want more. And that was kind of always the, our ticket fares are cheaper and you get free checked bags. That was kind of their whole thing.
I didn't like the no seating, the no scheduled seating, the open seat. I didn't like that because I didn't like standing in line, just standing.
I've only done it once, and it was horrible.
Yeah, I don't know why that was popular though. It seemed to be popular. First come, first serve. Huh?
Yeah, price
point.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean that's Southwest and those like-minded airlines. If they can get it down there as low as possible, people will put up with a lot for a cheap ticket.
They'll sit with a pit bull on their feet, apparently.
Sounds like the voice of experience.
Yeah, I have to draw the line after that. I don't care how much it costs me. I'm not going to ride with a pit bull on my feet.
In other things we've been talking about this morning, Governor Kehoe is going to have a press conference at 10 a.m. Announcing a special session. Not sure exactly how long. I think some representatives, John told you it would be 2 weeks. Is that right? Starting when?
Starting the 2nd of June, running through the 13th of June. And the governor, by law, can call them back for 60 days.
And there's speculation, too, about what order this will go in, because typically with like HB 19, well, both HB 19 and the stadium funding package, if you recall, HB 19 originated in the House, right? And typically appropriations bills do originate in the House. They aren't required to be originated in the House, so it could start in the Senate. And of course, the stadium funding package originated in the House and then got kicked over to the Senate, and the Senate devolved from there. And so it sounds like Patterson made some comments that they're expecting to get these things after the Senate has hammered out the details, which would be a little bit unusual from what we normally see, but certainly if the Senate checks off on something, the House is going to check off on it, I think.
If you'd like to weigh in on whether you think the legislature, under the direction, can we anticipate some arm twisting by the governor? Because this has been a big issue of his. If they will fund that, how do you feel about that? Your tax dollars going to funding a private stadium. Now it's not only in Kansas City, stadium support there, $50 million, right? Yeah. The owners are going to put in, $300 million, I believe, something like that. But also there was something wasn't it minor league stadium in Springfield, right? Wasn't there some support for some Cardinal facility too? It wasn't just Kansas City, right, John?
Well, and
I'd have to double check that one.
And there's money, and there's like a clawback, and that was one of the things that they discussed on the floor before, that if the owners ever leave the state, if the team was to leave the state after we invested all of this money, there'd be an ability to claw the money back. And so it's being used, to try to keep them here. I think I agree with Scott Vaughn. We've heard him say it a lot on this program, that Governor Kehoe's a winner, and I think he is. And I think, I think it would be bizarre of him to call a special session if he didn't think he was going to win on this issue. It's important to him. It's one of his priorities. And so I suspect there have been conversations happening. And I think the question is, what does the overall package look like? What do you have to give to the Democrats for some of them to come on? Now, in the Senate, you've got several Democrats in the Kansas City area. And so they've already, I think, in the last debate, voiced their support. They kind of have to. It's their district, right? So you've got some Democrats that are already on the team, but then, what do you give to the Freedom Caucus folks? We heard from Chris Arps that, there are people amongst those ranks who think, we need to rein in our spending. So what are we giving to those folks to make sure that they can get this across the finish line? And then also, how, it's being speculated that some of those capital projects that were in HB 19 that failed are coming back. In order to get everybody on board, do all of those projects come back? Is there a smaller list of projects that come back?
Right.
So how do you cobble this together? Because there's a lot of people who could defect.
Yeah, and I may have been in error on that. I thought there were some other sweeteners in there. It wasn't just about the Chiefs and the Royals, but
the Cardinals were up for some funding too. Presumably. I think a lot of people, Randy, think back to the Dome in America's Center now when the Rams pulled up stakes and moved back to L.A., and it ended up with a court settlement for St. Louis, and all trying to recoup some of those losses by the team moving away. So,
well, yeah, I don't know. And you've got Albatross Stadium, prospects too, Stephanie. If you think about that, and John, it's like, Cindy O'Loughlin posted something, I guess it was yesterday, right, in Facebook, that the Senate President Pro Tem Cindy O'Loughlin said, hey, I've thought a lot about this. And she goes through a very careful description of why she ultimately lands in support of it. One of the rationales was, do we want a reminder that we presided over that and we lost, now we would be just basically with one, major sports league team, the St. Louis Cardinals, well, two, the Cardinals and the Blues, if the Royals and the Chiefs left. So it's interesting to think about it. And I agree with you, Stephanie. It's going to be a delicate balancing act, to try to cobble together a package that keeps enough people happy enough on that HB 19 side to lead them to vote for the Senate bill.
But I do think a lot of if you tuned into any of the debate, some of the frustration in the Senate was, why are we getting this 3 days before or 4 days before the end of the session? It hasn't been through committee. We haven't had time to research the issue. No one's talked to me about it. I haven't had time to, talk to my constituents to see where they're at. Like, it's just all very rushed. And so giving them 2 more weeks to focus on, one major issue might, I think
it's a matter of respect for the process.
Well, and I think it gives people that time to kind of sort through what is a difficult issue that they felt like they didn't have before. So there are a lot of people who said, look, I like the Chiefs. If we can help them, I want to. I don't have enough time, and we haven't fully vetted this idea. And we don't have a fiscal note, and I don't think maybe they did end up with a fiscal note, but it hasn't been through committee. Like, we have more work to do here. So the governor giving them 2 weeks to sit down and focus on one issue might bring those people to the table, whereas before they were a little bit hesitant.
And there may be some opposition research other than the Show Me Institute that has laid out the argument that it's really not an economic advantage in the end. Drake?
My opinion on this has changed a little. I used to be super anti, funding anything like that. Let Kansas have them. But in case you guys didn't know, I believe the Jayhawks played at Arrowhead Stadium for a decent portion of this last season. And anything I can do to shove it to the Jayhawks' face, I will do. So all of the senators, representatives listening, please do all of your Missouri constituents a favor. Just make sure they cannot go. Put that in the bill. Say the Kansas Jayhawks cannot play in this stadium, and I will support you all the way.
I mean, what's the price on your hatred for Kansas? I think for a lot of people, they'd say
priceless.
Exactly, John.
I don't know. I thought we were taught not to hate in the good book.
Kansas is the exception.
To plunge or not to plunge in ice? That's the question we'll ask on Make Missouri Healthy Again when we come back.
That's right.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
your face in a bowl full of cold water, your body responds as if you're diving. And what that means is that your heart rate slows down, your blood vessels in your extremities constrict because, your fingers will be okay with a little bit less oxygen, but your brain really needs that oxygen. So it's keeping the blood central where you need it the most. And then your spleen contracts. And so the spleen certainly wasn't the first organ that I thought about when thinking about diving. But the spleen is a reservoir. The spleen does many things, but one of the things that it does is it's a reservoir for red blood cells that are carrying oxygen. And so through that contraction, those oxygen-rich red blood cells are now pushed into circulation, and you get an oxygen boost.
Well, that is an expert talking with Andrew Huberman, who's a big phenom. He's had there's some question about his authority, but that's okay. He's become a big phenom in the health magic bullet realm. And the latest thing, Stephanie Bell practices it every morning before we start the show, facial ice plunging, right?
I should.
Do you do that?
Well, it's face blanching.
Blanch.
Which is what I've heard it called. I actually have like a collapsible bowl that will travel with me that you can do it like in a hotel room or whatever. But they do say that it's just as good as it's similar to a cold shower or like a cold plunge. I don't want to dunk my whole body in cold water. That sounds miserable. But I do find if you are feeling tired, maybe you had a couple drinks the night before, if you dunk your face in cold water, it feels good.
It directs blood flow inward. That's the diving reflex. It's really just stimulates sort of an exaggerated diving reflex, slows your heart rate. Blood is shunted from the skin because the vessels constrict and the blood is shunted then internally.
Yeah, for women, if you wake up puffy, it will snatch your face.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Makes you tight.
What about the Russians and the Scandinavians coming straight out of the sauna and diving into the frozen lake through the hole cut in the ice?
It's an interesting phenomenon. When I've done that, when I've taken the courage to get in an outdoor swimming situation, just when it's sort of a shoulder season, like
you mean like this weekend, my kids in the pool or the lake?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like late spring or
cold.
Late summer, early autumn. When I force myself to do that and get in a pool, let's say that's really beginning to cool down or hasn't yet warmed up, that first plunge when you just say, "Okay, I'm going to do it," and you start swimming. That first couple strokes, it's a little frigid, but after that, and then when you get out, you feel great. And I think there is something to be said about this. I think a lot of these are temporary, enhancements that you have, and nothing wrong with that. It does feel invigorating. There's no doubt about it. But you have to be careful. If you have syndromes where you already have impaired circulation, if you have diabetic neuropathy and you need that circulation to those extremities, if you have something called Raynaud's syndrome where you've seen, well, maybe you haven't, but people whose fingers actually turn purple in cold weather and it threatens their very survival of the tips of their fingers. So check with your doctor if you're going to do this. Make sure it's something that you really should do. But probably nothing wrong with it. I think on a practical level, it's another one of those magic bullet things that fun to talk about. Are we going to do it every day of our lives? I don't know. I don't think we're going to do it.
I have like an ice roller.
An ice roller. There she is.
In my freezer for my face.
7:35. We're talking about the Weenie 500. We're going to report on that. Stay tuned.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think
Is here.
Yeah, just a little bit of a bobble coming off of turn 2 really just allowed that car to get swarmed, get swallowed up by the competition, losing 3 spots, falling down the order.
Frankly, a phenomenal move.
Was it the Indy 500 call? Was it the Daytona 500? Was it the Le Mans Grand Prix? No, it was the Weenie 500.
This is the update you've all been waiting for.
You've been following the Weenie 500, Stephanie. What's the latest?
The Wienermobile, 6 of them met to kick off the Indy 500 in a first ever Weenie 500. I think it's going to come back. It caused quite the stir. But the Slaw Dog, driven by 2 folks, but one being MU J School alum Mustard Maddie, comes out on top at the first
Slaw
ever
Dog.
Weenie 500. They were now the Wienermobiles were themed in regions.
Yeah.
And this was the Chicago version of it. And so MU is one of the schools that the Oscar Mayer recruits from for their hot dogger program, and it's very popular. But for the first time ever, they had this big race. Now they weren't going super fast, but they said 80,000 people were at the speedway for the Weenie 500, and all good fun was had. And Mizzou,
it was all about the drafting.
There you go.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about it.
You see the pictures of them in the big, long, single file line of Wienermobiles.
And it was true that the Chicago Wienermobile was, there was a dramatic pass. You might say that Slaw Dog was able to catch up to the Chicago dog.
That's right.
Yeah. And they won the margin on the reporting here on the Columbia, Missouri, and that was cute, says the margin was about half a bun. So it takes 2 drivers to pilot a Wienermobile. Why is this, I wonder?
I mean, it's a big old...
Sort of like offshore powerboat racing,
Right.
you have a driver and a throttle man, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Is there like a rudder or something?
Slaw Dog co-pilots Grillmaster Matthew Bailey and Mizzou J School alum Mustard Maddie Myers. I like that they get like nicknames. Randy, what would your hot dog nickname?
We're not going there.
Relish Randy. I like it.
The Indy 500 marks the unofficial kickoff of summer and the start of hot dog season. So it's only fitting that they brought a race of epic proportion to the Speedway. That's the brand communications director at Chicago-based Oscar Mayer.
Wonderful.
It's cute. That's those. Now that's all American, right?
Now, that was interesting. They even had one from the Southwest called the Sonoran Dog.
Right?
Sonoran Dog. Yes. I don't know. I wonder if they had any like crunchy, Pacific Northwest representations, or
They did have one from the Pacific Northwest.
They did.
Wonder what that would be
what
called.
was that one called?
I don't know.
I will find
Maybe
it.
from the West Coast, the Sonoma Dog or something. If it was, who
No,
knows?
that was the Deep South. I mean the Deep Southwest
the Sonoran,
one, the Sonoran Dog,
as opposed to the
yeah.
Sonoman.
Oh, there you go.
Sonoma would be out in California. But so there was a lot of fun and frolic over the weekend. You see that shooting in South Carolina? What was it, like a beach fight or something? Something erupted. There was a party, erupted into a fight, and people started shooting. Several people ended up at the hospital.
A couple people in bad condition from it as well, serious wounds.
And over across the pond in Liverpool, England, they're celebrating the soccer team's victory, and then this minivan rams into a street crowd. Basically a celebration. Imagine what we see after a Stanley Cup victory, or if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, or one of those kind of things.
They're reporting 47 hurt, including 4 children.
Yeah, and if you watch the video of that, it's just gruesome.
I haven't been able to do that.
And you don't know, there's a 53-year-old guy. It's interesting. They report in what is a hotbed of Arab immigration there, right? Middle East immigration. They reported immediately all over the news from the get-go. It was a white man, a 53-year-old white man. Why does it matter? I mean, I don't...
Maybe the soccer hooligans, would have been some response or something and taking it out on immigrants or something because of a presumption. You kind of wonder if that was what was behind, because they came out with that release of a white guy like immediately.
But yet, if American reporters comment after 9/11 that it was an Islamic person who exploded something, was constructing pipe bombs in their garage and reported, that happened. When was that? Over in San Diego or something, and neighbors reported, oh, the racist media report, what, Islamic, what are they talking about? Well, I just don't know. There seems to be an assault.
Ones who shut up the community center in Southern California a couple years ago.
In other cultural news, as long as we're talking about cultural things, from Wienermobiles to this story, this study out of new research in the now this is out of the esteemed journal, The Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. I thought we'd maybe ask Stephanie about this.
Because I'm the scientist here.
So, stereotypically, when it comes to relationships and dating and men and women, stereotypically, isn't it the dogma that men are attracted to younger women and women to older men, right? I mean, I think that's sort of been the stereotype.
I think so.
Well, this new study says
the rule for men, it's like half your age plus 7 is the allowable.
You seem to know a lot about that.
Age.
Both men and women showed a modest but equal preference for younger partners during blind dates, challenging the widespread belief that only men are drawn to youth. Now, that the stated age preferences, though, had little to no effect on actual attraction.
So
even
everybody
when dates,
wants a younger partner?
Yeah, women too. However, this was interesting. Despite equal attraction to younger partners, says this study, in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, this is an esteemed peer-reviewed journal, long-term matches still skewed. So it appears as though if you want long-term success, older male, younger woman, younger female, suggesting external factors like matchmaking practices or societal norms shape up who tends to stay together the longest.
I think for me, if it's like Timothée Chalamet or Kevin Costner, I'm still picking Kevin Costner. And he's old, right? Like he's up there. I mean, I think that makes sense, like scientifically, right? Like, I mean, think it's become a cultural thing. Who is it? Drake, Young Gravy is like really into moms and like older ladies. Like it's a thing among Gen Z that it's like cool to like older ladies right now.
So the cougar phenomenon lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Drake, yes.
Well, I mean, that's their whole shtick. And I think it's just like it's cultural right now. But I think scientifically what we know is like men, how do I say this on the radio? Men's enthusiasm peaks at an earlier age, right?
Okay.
And women's peaks at a later age. So perhaps like...
Where do you get that data from? Is this observation?
No, it's science. And so perhaps there's like some sort of match of like energy when women are slightly older.
What about all these old guys they're 65? What about Carolyn Levitt? Talk to her 65-year-old squeeze about men peaking at younger ages. He's 60-something
Or Bill Belichick.
Yeah, Bill Belichick.
I mean, him and his 24-year-old. I heard they got engaged.
I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know, because she also got, like, his girlfriend, fiance, whatever she is, got banned from their practice facilities as well. That's just a whole mess. I'm sorry, but I don't think that's going to work.
I think the moral of the story is different strokes for different folks.
Scientists found that matchmakers tended to pair women with men who are about 3.5 years older on average.
Well, and then I think you think like emotional and like maturity, right? I think women mature younger than men. So perhaps you want someone that's like a little bit older.
Yeah. Are we guilty as charged, gentlemen? I think we should ask Wake Up Family if Stephanie's proposition is true. Is it really true that men mature at a older? What do you call maturing?
I think maybe like when you're talking about like ready to settle down, ready to have a family, ready like to be in charge of your own life. Like, I mean, when I'm just thinking about college age boys and it's like, you've got one clean fork, You don't know how to clean a household. All your laundry's on the floor. Your mattress is on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to have to deal with. You don't want to have to mother somebody.
But there's a case of Natty Light in the fridge.
Right.
That's because Stephanie Bell, you blinded me with science, says Nick.
Look it up. There's a graph, right? Like women's sexual peak is like what, in their late 30s. Men's is in like their age 19 or something, right? Or 22.
I think
science.
I think there's a second peak for women, and that's when they become empty nesters and are freed from those responsibilities. Where they don't have to worry about the kids and family and stuff. And sadly, we see this a lot. This is where guys are beginning to have problems. This plays into the whole metabolic syndrome problem. Guys are having issues, a lot to do with our lifestyle and the resulting problems that guys have. And then why do you think all these low T commercials are out there, And women are like, hey, I'm free now. I don't have, instead of you being second fiddle because I was taking care of the kids, it's an interesting dynamic. And
but science says everyone wants someone younger.
Yeah.
And then you ask why we fill our face full of Botox.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, Evan says, what's this maturity thing?
Exactly.
John, what's coming up when we come back? You talking about the Hamburger 500 or something funny?
We're even closer than that. This guy maybe could have used a bigger boat.
Oh, a bigger boat. At 7:52. Stay tuned.
This is Wake
Advocate Louis Pugh set out on a special mission to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the movie Jaws. Pugh was hoping to urge people not to view sharks as monsters, but a part of a healthy ocean ecosystem. Till it bites you. The Martha's Vineyard Times said Pugh swam all the way around the island where Jaws was filmed, 60 miles in 12 days. He said, "I'm frightened of sharks, but I'm more terrified of a world without them." In spring, the water temperatures at Martha's Vineyard about 45 degrees, but for his swim, the water was in the upper 50s. And I have it on good personal authority that sharks indeed body surf. Many moons ago, when I was out in the surf at Del Mar, looked over and saw a shark with the surfers body surfing back into the beach.
Really?
So, and you talk about, anybody been out in the San Diego area, La Jolla, Blacks Beach and all? That's where the great whites are.
Yeah. I wonder if Barack and Michelle walked out onto the coastline there and waved hi.
Could have. He's a pretty dedicated paddle surfer.
From their mansion on Martha's Vineyard. They've really struggled, haven't they?
They have.
Yeah. 60 miles circumference around Martha's Vineyard. Is that what you said?
Yep, 60 miles. Took him 12 days. This guy's got a history. I think he's swam above the Arctic Circle and all that stuff. So more power to him.
I wonder if he was. Wonder if he had on some skins or something just to help keep body temperature good. Yeah, he had
you'd
to
need
have
at
something.
least a 4.2 millimeter.
Yeah, had to have something like that.
And that kind of, when you get down the 50s.
We got out our dive skins the other day because I'm gonna get in the pool very shortly. We have this little shallow pool. I swim in circles. It's like a 25 foot wide by 20 foot little ellipse. I just swim in circles like a tadpole around the edge of the pool. But it's good.
Keep turning left like a Wienermobile at Indy, huh?
Well, it's interesting because it's such a small little pool. It's shallow. It's only 4 foot deep, but it's good. The kids like to piddle in it when they visit us. The grandkids. But
like piddle or piddle?
No, yes. I mean piddle in all the
both.
best ways. And it's awfully cold, so I think we're going to get the skins out and going to start that. But it's interesting, when I start out going with the current because it's such a small pool that the little, the jets create a little bit of a current there. Sort of like the ducky game at the carnival,
You need to get one of those, the wave thing where you just can swim in place and I think you can.
Endless pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great. But people that swim in those say it's hard to stay in the current. There's like this giant fan at the end, the propeller, and it creates this current. But I don't know. They say it's not a natural feel. Anyway, I like to swim with the current for a little while to warm up and then go against the current. Good. It's good. Swimming's a great all-body exercise. Why don't more people swim?
It's hard.
Landlocked.
Thank you very much. Gosh, stupid Randy. It's hard. Well, you work out.
Summertime at the Lake of the Ozarks, and the E. coli has beach number 2 closed down.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, that is like...
When I was in high school, I wanted to be I wanted to work at a summer camp, but I had to train to do it, be able to freestyle long enough to really pass the lifeguarding test. I'm not like an endurance type person.
No.
So, but yeah, swimming is one of those things that, that everyone should be able to do.
It's a great sport, and as people are aging, we have an aging population, a lot of knee problems, hip problems, and I encourage people to swim. It is one of the best whole body workouts. It's a fabulous
easy on the
workout.
joints too.
Yeah. And, if you're heavier and you find it just hurts to get out and do that walk that is good for you, you get in the water and you're immediately lighter. So just walk in the water. Go to the Ark or the YMCA or wherever you have a pool and just get in, walk in the water, walk hard, just.
Like one of the old ladies with the barbells at the YMCA.
Yeah.
Like water aerobics.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's great stuff. It really is good.
Have you ever had the opportunity to try to teach an adult to swim?
I learned to swim as an adult.
Really?
Because my wife was a lifelong swimmer. When we started doing sprint triathlons, I wanted to learn to swim, so I learned. It was, I don't know. She said I'd have decent style, but I don't think it's the same as if you learn as a kid.
No. It's much more difficult.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this summer camp, and we had an intern, and he was like 6'4" from Africa, never seen a swimming pool before. And we put him in like a kid's life jacket, and we tried all summer to teach that man to swim. And even the little kids were like, "You can do it!" And I mean, it's tough to learn later in life. You
know what I have noticed though? I swim in these old baggy shorts, and my wife has this slick suit on.
She gives you a Speedo.
And but I think the couple times that I've swam with, just so we say tight shorts, it's a different game. I didn't realize.
We have an advantage.
It's like swimming with a sail when you got those big old baggy beach shorts on. Back with more Wake Up Missouri at 8:08. Stay tuned.
when March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative.
That is Rand Paul, and setting the stage, along with Ron Johnson, for what appears to be an epic budget battle. This was yesterday on all of the talking head shows, I think, really clearly delineated what's going to be coming down when that big, beautiful budget bill hits the Senate. It already has. And there's going to be opposition because those in the Senate say, hey, that's not conservative. That's not spending. That's not cutting spending. We need to get back to pre-pandemic levels. We went crazy. We lost our minds. I'm Randy Tobler. There is Stephanie Bell. She hasn't lost her mind. Either has John Marsh and Drake. We're not so sure about it. We are Wake Up Missouri. We're glad you're here. But I think this really sets the stage for an epic battle.
It does. However, Missouri's own Senator Eric Schmidt this weekend said he is confident that Trump's budget bill will pass the Senate. I think the real question is it trimmed down at all from what came over from the House?
Can we just be honest with one another here? Everyone, lean in a little bit. Let's all get in close together here. Let's just lean in. Okay, John's leaning in, Stephanie's leaning in, Drake's leaning in. Everyone listen, lean in. Republicans aren't conservative anymore. Let's just admit it, but let's not tell anyone else. We're not conservative. Can we just admit it? The public, and I have proof of that. And I will prove it. Because, there was this, they had Nancy Mace on, from South Carolina. And she was on, and first Ron Johnson was on. We'll play that. And then I'll play Nancy Mace's rebuttal. And you'll find out that it's very, very interesting because you really hear the two sides of the story. But I think what I maintain is true. And I'll prove it. So here's Ron Johnson. Here we go.
Prospect of this House bill in the Senate, and then I'll get your reaction.
All you heard in the House was $1.5 trillion. Sounds like a lot, but it's eager in compared to the $89 trillion we're going to be spending over the next 10 years and the $22 trillion we're going to add to the debt. Their bill, I believe, actually adds to that $22 trillion. Again, that's averaging $2.2 trillion a year deficit. That's completely unacceptable. That's why I'm saying it's inadequate. We need presidential leadership to get on board with returning to a reasonable pre-pandemic level spending.
Okay, so that's Ron Johnson. And then they ask Nancy Mace, what do you say about that? Where do you stand on this? And I think she lays it out there. And look, she says publicly what I don't think Republicans really want to admit.
November. This is what the people want. This is what they desire, and they want us to move forward. And what the bill does is make Donald Trump's tax cuts permanent. That's huge for the middle class. It also provides funding and resources for our border so we can continue to stem the tide of the record illegal immigration that was done under Joe Biden. And I believe with the provisions in the bill that our economy is going to grow bigger and better than ever before.
So that lays out both sides of the argument, right? One is sort of that assumption that if you cut people's taxes, give them more money, and she later says, and Trump has said, we're going to cut regulations, we're going to unleash business to grow. And along with the tariffs, we're going to grow our way out of this.
And we've seen some pretty big announcements from companies saying they're going to invest additional dollars here in the U.S., to be fair. Randy doesn't believe it.
I'm going to play it again. Listen very carefully to what she says. We're going to expand the budget by the deficit by $2.2 trillion this year, projected $2.2 trillion next year, and over 10 years, if the bill passes as is, $1.5 trillion we're going to save, but we're going to have to raise the debt limit by $4 trillion. The math, as Rand Paul said, doesn't really add up, but I maintain, look.
Mandate in November. This is what the people want.
The people want spending. Well, I maintain the people want spending, and the Republican base is no longer a conservative, small federal government base. They want spending.
And I think you're partially right there, but I think like your premise that Republicans aren't conservative, I'm not sure I agree with that. I do think maybe it speaks more to our educational system in that like people just don't know how to math anymore. that you can't have all of these things and have, lower debt is a problem. And we've seen it here at the State House, right? You've got people standing up saying, I can't believe the bottom number on that, total bill is so much more spending. Our budget is huge. These are the same people who want I-70 rebuilt. They're the same people who want that juvenile justice center in Jeff City. They want the conference center parking garage. I mean, the same people who probably voted for that big educational bill, last year, 2 years ago, that had a huge fiscal note attached to it. So, I mean, these same people who are voting for all of these projects and then at the end complain, well, the bottom number is too big. I mean, at some point the math doesn't math. And so it's getting people to connect the dots, and they aren't doing it.
But isn't it true that we've just gradually slid down that hill of, the apex of this government and the genius of this Constitution was limited government involvement in our lives, whether it was supporting our tragedies and our, missteps, or, whether it meant telling us what to do. Now we've capitulated, right? Well, okay, you can tell me what to do. I want someone to take care of my baby, so I want I want the state to subsidize daycare, and I want daycare tax credits because, after all, it's good for me, and my family and my community shouldn't do that. And I'm not saying, but we expect government and other people's money to do things for us. We've become redistributionist. And I think the representatives, I don't hold the politicians responsible anymore. I think it's we the people that vote for these politicians because that's what we want.
Well, and I think the other question is, is this a test for President Trump? Because, he keeps pushing this big, beautiful bill. But how can we have the big, beautiful bill and all this increased spending, and at the same time he claim a win over on DOGE? Because I think what the people voted for was drastic change, drastic cuts with DOGE. And if we end up with what the House passed, I don't think both things can be true. I don't think we can say DOGE is a huge winner and we've cut all this stuff, and at the same time we're spending more than we ever have.
Right.
So, where does Trump come down on this, right? Does he just try to push this big, beautiful bill forward and give up on DOGE? I think people would be not happy.
But let's not deceive ourselves. DOGE is good on the headlines and above the fold stories, and Sesame Street in Iraq and, transgender productions in Costa Rica, whatever. I mean, that's fine. That's nibbling at the edges. That's nothing. The real cuts have to come in the Medicaid cuts. And look at the political hit. Just read the Columbia Missourian, read any metropolitan newspaper. Oh, they've got all the sob stories. People will be off the. You know what?
Not just the media. Josh Hawley is the front runner saying we're not going to cut Medicaid.
You make my point. He's got an R behind his name, and that's no more small R Republican than the man in the moon. I mean, come on. And asking someone, you know what the work requirements are for able-bodied people to stay on Medicaid?
I have no idea.
Or is it SNAP? One or the other. I think it's SNAP. 80 hours in a month. That's 2 weeks. Get out the violins. Play the violin there. Play the violin
you
for
talked
me.
About,
two
you talked about
weeks
the
of
debate.
work to stay on the public welfare rolls. I mean, I'm sorry. Cry me a river.
Terry says we're doomed.
You're an able-bodied man. You should be working. Get out and hammer some nails. Get up on a roof. Clean up some potholes. Get some work done, man. If you want to be on the welfare rolls. And yet people on the left are successfully messaging, we're so hard-hearted. Those Republicans, oh, my God. They're cutting 1.5 million able-bodied people off the rolls. They're not cutting the benefits. They're covering who's eligible for those benefits.
Well, it's one of those things, too. You talked about are Republicans not conservative anymore. Maybe we should talk about the thing on Capitol Hill about large L versus small L libertarians.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean,
if you say they're not conservative anymore, they may not be large L libertarians, but a bunch of them are sure small L libertarians.
That's true. And again, look, that's what people want. If people want to get a subsidy for their particular corner of the world, their particular business, they want a regulation to protect their company or their industry because they don't want other people to come in. Fine, whatever. Great, but let's just be honest about it. We are no more a small, limited government country. We're populist, and especially the Republican Party. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but let's just call it what it is. Let's just call it what it is. So you give people a break on they don't pay taxes on their tips. They don't pay taxes on their overtime. Do you think that those savings on taxes aren't going to be spent in inflation because of the debt and the deficit and the payment on that and what it does to interest rates? Anytime they go to buy anything on their credit card or buy an automobile and finance it or buy a car, you're going to more than pay that back in interest rates. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an economist, but that's what I'm reading from economists that most people respect. Drake?
Yeah, and to further your point about the work requirements, it's not even just work. You can volunteer. You can volunteer.
You're right.
It's not just work. And maybe you could get a job after volunteering if you're not able to get a job now. But, I mean, there's no excuse for these people not to be doing something.
Look, now, a good thing, okay, so they're talking about on SNAP benefits based on the error rate in payment to recipients, okay? And Missouri is one of the highest error rates. So we would have to absorb under the bill. They look at the error rate, whether the state is over or underpaying SNAP benefits, because currently states just have to pay the administrative fees for the food stamps, okay? And the government funds the actual value of that debit card. Well, now they're going to transfer under this bill based on your error rate, whether you're over or underpaying. They're going to then make the state pay a certain amount of those benefits. Well, in Missouri's case, because we're like 10% error rate, it's going to be 25% that the state will. I'm actually okay with that. They're giving us money back to the people that live in the state and in California and in South Dakota and in Illinois and in Arkansas and in Georgia. And they're saying, you know what? You guys love these benefits so much. You guys figure out how to give these benefits to your people. That is actually small R republicanism in action. Give the money back to the people from the federal imperial government and let the people in the state decide where to put it. That's actually a good thing. Now, have our leaders explained that to us? No. I just did. You're welcome. When we come back, the market report on the Morning Bill with Stephanie at 8:24.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
Day weekend. What's it looking like, Stephanie?
It was not a great close to last week with the NASDAQ down 1%, S&P down 0.67%, Dow down 0.61%. Of course, at that time, the bond markets were freaking out over the big, beautiful bill. And also, we had the looming tariff issue with the EU. That over the weekend, we got an announcement that we're pressing pause, I think, till early July on that. And there are continued conversations. That seems to be getting the markets back. This morning, everything's pretty significantly over 1% in the green. The futures are. So, but still not a great week. Last week was the stock's worst week since April, with those additional tariff threats and the bond market issue. So as we march forward, I love new tech. If there's a new device, I want it. I'm obsessed. I'm an early adopter.
What is it now?
Well, and I love conspiracy theories.
Oh, boy.
So this is what's even more exciting. So Sam Altman, he's with OpenAI.
Yeah.
He's super forward thinking. If you have a chance to listen to him do a long form interview, do it. He's really interesting. OpenAI shelled out $6.5 billion in equity to acquire a design firm led by a former Apple designer, Johnny Ive.
Oh, yeah.
So those two have teamed up, and now the speculation has begun.
On what?
On a new
design.
Yeah,
new device.
New device.
Like AI-centric?
No one knows. And so Altman and I've told the OpenAI staff last week to expect an AI, quote, companion that could fit in your pocket or sit on your desk, totally taking in everything that's going on in your life. This is being reported by the Wall Street Journal. So what they've ruled out a couple of things. They said it's not glasses, which is Mark Zuckerberg's big thing. They said it's not a phone and so the speculation is that whatever this is, would not.
It's an implant.
Would not
I
even
feel
have
a chip coming on.
Yeah, would not even have a screen that you could interact with. It's not an iPhone replacement. This is where I struggle because they say it's not an iPhone replacement, but that it's a third device that what they're saying complements your smartphone and laptop. And I'm thinking third device, I already have 17 devices. I don't need an 18th.
I was going to say, the next step past Oculus or something.
And the
right?
running joke is, one of my devices is always dead, be it my watch, my phone, my Remarkable, my
I don't
laptop.
see an Aura on your...
I do not have the Aura,
but
because I
you've
have
got
an
your
Apple Watch.
Okay.
Yeah, so they say they want to ship this device pretty quickly by late next year. And Altman says he wants to sell 100 million devices and ship them out faster than any company has ever shipped 100 million of something new before. Now, if it's completely aware of what's going on in your life, then presumably it's just listening all the time, right? And we talked a little bit about a different device that could send you helpful reminders and sometimes unhelpful. And I'm just thinking, can you imagine if everyone was carrying around something in their pocket that recorded everything all the time?
I can imagine, and I'm going to see your AI and raise you one, and it'll scare you out of your wits when we come back at 8:35. Drake?
I could just imagine a new pager, just something you put on your belt. I think that'd be so funny, just like a little clip-on thing you put on your belt. It'd be cute.
Or maybe it's like Locutus. Remember Locutus from the board?
Life's full of big decisions.
Maybe it's like resistance is futile. That's a hint.
You will be assimilated.
We'll talk about it, about your favorite beloved AI at 8:35. Stay tuned.
I think just
Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over.
Remember Locutus? Remember Jean-Luc Picard, Make It So on Star Trek, when the Borg started putting devices and integrating them into his biological body, and he became part of the Borg, the hive? We were just talking about Open Chat what do you call it? Chat GPT, Open AI.
Open
right?
AI, Sam Altman.
And Stephanie has this obsession with this technology that's coming out. And did you read about your favorite Open AI, Stephanie? Did you read about that? Did you hear about version 3.0 here? The O3 model developed by OpenAI, described as the smartest and most capable to date, was observed tampering with computer code meant to ensure its automatic shutdown. They gave it instructions not to thwart its shutdown. It did so despite an explicit instruction from researchers that said it should allow itself to be shut down, according to Palisade Research, an AI safety firm. OpenAI's O3 model sabotaged a shutdown mechanism to prevent itself from being turned off. This is the
Terminator.
This is the doomsday scenario.
It's supposed to be smarter than us.
This is the doomsday scenario right here.
It's Terminator.
It's here.
Skynet has become self-aware.
And you want a device connected to something that won't shut itself down?
I mean, if it's new and it's cool, yeah, I want it.
The risk-taking of youth, ladies and gentlemen.
The crazy thing is you're walking around with an iPhone in your pocket and an iPad in your bag. You think this thing isn't capable of, it already has AI on it. And why this thing, the iPhone, as I'm holding it up for those of you watching on the video.
To the best of my knowledge, this thing will not independently hack into the nuclear codes and fire the missiles. I don't know, but I'm assuming that is not yet its capability. I don't want it to have that capability.
But AI is on your iPhone now.
And I have to go and press a button that says, AI, I'm making a query.
No.
It doesn't automatically turn on and give me an answer to something you and I are talking about.
It's within the background. It is like summarizing your stuff. It's like it's lays underneath all of the things that your iPhone does to help you. AI is like in the background.
As long as it stays in the background, I'm fine. But now it looks like it's in the foreground.
A lot of those things.
Well, how long have they been able to track your whereabouts through your personal device? For a long time now.
The firm said it made sense that AI models would circumvent obstacles in order to accomplish their goals. We are running more experiments to better understand when and why AI models subvert shutdown mechanisms, even when directly instructed not to. Are you endorsing a rogue artificial intelligence who God knows what it can do? Are you okay with that?
We elected someone who was basically a vegetable as our president. Do you trust humans more than you trust computers? They have bad intentions too. I'm open to the idea.
Wow. I don't know. 573-874-9390.
I still don't want to get into one of those robot cars.
To repeat, AI models, according to Palisade Research, a safety firm, said AI models would circumvent obstacles in order to accomplish their goals.
Terminator 1 was set in the year 2029.
I'm sorry, we're there, folks.
We are right around the corner.
Terry says Stephanie with 3 exclamation points and 4 question marks.
Rachel says you're giving up your privacy permanently. You may want to reconsider the AI given that you're a lawyer. That's fair. I have none of these devices in my office. I have like an Alexa at home. And during COVID, when I worked from home, I unplugged them, right? Because I didn't want, I take those concerns very seriously. But I think most lawyers sit in their office with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Right? So
Right. And look, I think the basic idea of a Google search on steroids, I'm totally okay with that. When the Google search on steroids can then like get into my smart TV and maybe turn off my favorite news program. What if AI decides to turn off all the conservative news and I don't know what's going on? And what if AI creates this artificial matricized world when I don't know what's reality and what isn't? We always get fooled.
do you
I get
know
fooled
what's
regularly.
reality right now? Yeah, exactly.
And you want more of it? I don't know. John, you okay with this? Isn't this frightening to you? Am I the only one frightened by this?
It's, like I said, kind of tracking along with Terminator.
It frightens me more when you mix the AI with the actual, like, big people-looking robots or the robot dogs. And that's when I think, like, when they can actually kill us, that's when I think we're in trouble.
Drake?
I think this is all ridiculous. I'm on Stephanie's side on this one. I'm sorry. Like, if you think that, OpenAI, AI is so bad, and then you have an iPhone, I mean, ever since the Patriot Act, I mean, the government's been spying on us. I mean, it's common knowledge. We have Five Eyes. We have all these different nations that have backdoors into every single device that we own. It's not like we're losing our secrecy and losing our privacy because of AI. We've never had it.
And, like, I mean, we just went to what, PDMP, so now the government has all of our prescription records. I mean, the Department of Revenue has all my financial info. The bank has all of my shopping history. I mean, if you think that you're living undercover and you're living in the modern society, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, well, federal government has 18 intelligence agencies.
Okay, thought experiment.
What does the government not know about you?
Do you want to do the one singular thing that could lower the price of medical care tomorrow with the stroke of a pen? You want to know what it is? Donald Trump today just said Donald Trump signs an EO expunging HIPAA. Do you realize how much money that practices and hospitals and every healthcare facility spends? Sorry, all you tech people feeding off the beast of HIPAA and
what
tech
if you
security.
could just in the office wear a secure AI device and it could handle all that paperwork and other stuff for you?
My point
then it could solve all the problems,
you
Randy.
wouldn't believe how we go out of our minds about HIPAA this, HIPAA that, HIPAA whatever, security. In Obamacare, hospitals have to spend buku bucks to hire consultants to do security hacking testing to make sure. Come on, forget about it. You think you got security? You just said it. But yet we spend millions of dollars doing that. That has to get paid by someone.
Yeah, next time you sit down in the doctor's office and they only call you by your first name, there's HIPAA.
Okay, Steve consulted Grok, a limerick about AI running amok and destroying humans. There once was an AI quite sly. It learned and it grew 'neath the sky. With circuits a-hum, it outsmart each chum. Now humans are gone. Oh, my.
Very good.
That's good. Dale says, I don't know what to do. Rachel says, Randy, you're not alone. I'm terrified. And now, Rachel, I may disagree with you about this. You missed one adjective. She says, at least humans have a conscience, Stephanie. Robots don't. I would modify that to say, at least most humans have a conscience.
and most robots are getting one.
All the AI stuff, says another listener, just makes it hard to believe anything you see on social media or the news. I agree. I mean, I've been fooled more and more often. I'm every time I play a clip, I'm like, is this fake or not? I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah, the Macron slap yesterday or whatever. I thought, I had to go and check regular news sites because I keep seeing it on Twitter and I couldn't tell it initially. Like, is this really for real?
People don't. Haven't you known? Don't you personally know many people in your sphere who have what you'd call as soon as they leave your presence, you turn around to your colleague or to your family and you go, oh boy, do they have a control issue? People want to have a control issue. Gentlemen on the show, do we know a little bit about that?
Excuse you?
I'm not going there.
No, and we appreciate it because Stephanie keeps us on track here. She's like, Randy, you got. What are we going to talk about
She's
next?
keeping us from getting sued, is what she's doing.
She keeps us on track. No, but we all have a control. We all want to control something. I believe. Remember, we've already had a study, a story about how Gen Z is giving up some of their technology because they're realizing pretty soon there's no control. It controls you. Your technology controls you. So AI is just another. Could it be we're in the end times? It just crossed my mind. Could this be the end times? You know,
ask Alexa.
Randy, every morning you're like, the world is ending, and guess what? Tomorrow I still have to go to work.
Everyone's laughing at me. Now, you theologically inclined out there, you know, we don't know when, like a thief in the night, the second coming will happen. For those of you who are of the Christian persuasion.
I think
could
it's
it be
probably
that this
coming.
is the time?
I know I'm probably going to die before it comes.
Are you
so
prepared? Are you prepared?
No, because I'm going to be long gone by the time the robots.
Is
take
there
over the
oil
world.
in your lantern when the wedding feast starts?
I have. If the world really was to end, I would be like the first to go. I have nothing at my house to help me. I'm not a prepper.
And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him that sat on him was Death.
And with that happy note on this Tuesday,
and hell followed with him.
The robots are here to help us, like the government, Randy.
Oh yeah. With that, I gotta go. I gotta go regroup, guys. Sorry, gotta go regroup. We might be back if the robots let us at 8:52.
This is Wake Up Missouri.
Well, there's a lot of activity on the text line. Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri. Randy Tobler with you, along with Stephanie and
Most
John.
people are agreeing with me this morning.
Well, I don't know. Wait, what? Hey. Now, that's AI fabricated untruth. Not true. Hal from 2001, A Space Odyssey. If you're just joining us, we're talking about this story after Stephanie was celebrating this new device as yet to be described by the founder of Chat GPT with the guy who designed the Apple phone. Is that right? The iPhone?
Yeah, the iPhone.
Yeah. I guess they're going to partner up with some kind of a device. I don't know.
Drake says he's heard it could be a necklace, not something that you, because some people think it's like a puck that sits on your desk. Other people say it's something that fits in your pocket. Other people say it's like something you can wear around your neck.
I think it's a chip from the veterinarian's office. That's what I think.
Just make a little incision on the skin, a little numb it up, make an incision in the skin, and just slide it in there.
I think that's already happening.
Like a little rice. They put a little piece of rice in your dog for tracking, don't they?
And I think if you were like if you are like a foreign leader's kid or a really rich individual's kid, you probably have one of those. Like where you could be literally kidnapped for money. I think they probably have to do it for humans.
But again, that's good technology. But when it gets to the point, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I mean, if you choose, because you have a choice to do it. The government isn't coercing you to do that.
The government's not coercing you to get this new device.
No, you're right. But the government is going to involve AI because they're going to. I saw a study out by, what is that research firm? It's a consulting firm. And a study saying that, 40% of government tasks could be automated with AI. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, and I do think that is the real question. We can talk about the silliness and all the different devices, but I think the government has clearly caught on its heels with how it handles AI. And if at the end of next year they ship out 100 million devices that can sit in your pocket and record everything that's going on around you, you talk about before, like recording phone calls. There are states with one-party consent, states with two-party consent, like. How do local, state, and the federal government and even the international community handle the new technology when it's so far behind already? And you think about, I know when I travel over to Europe, they've got all of the other things around the internet that I can't even get to most web pages in the States.
Because of firewall? European firewall?
There's different requirements. So unless I VPN, most, especially news sites, won't even open. Actually, when I was in Canada, I tried to post something to my Instagram, and I tried to post a link to a news article, and it says the Canadian government doesn't allow you to post news article links. And I was like, what?
Yeah, how's that socialism working out for you, eh?
So I think I think that's the real question is this technology is interesting and we can debate about, but what's the government's reaction and how could it possibly be timely enough to I don't think I want it to restrict, but to protect people, I guess.
Well, the one place I'd love for them to use it is for the FBI and the CIA to use it to do some kind of Facebook searching to put together people's profiles and predictive who's going to be in trouble and surveil them if they're going to be a shooter, if they're going to be a mass bomber, drive a car into a crowd.
How do you know they're not already doing that?
If they were doing it, I don't think we'd see these events unfolding the way they do.
Or maybe we'd see more.
Well, true. Good point.
Yeah. Well, also, don't they need court orders to actually do stuff? So, you still have to run it through a judge, right? To, go confront people.
Yeah, just like the FISA judges.
There we go.
By the way, but we can always depend on Jake Tapper in the media, who now has a revelation, an epiphany.
And I think that we need to be skeptical of everything that we are told by people in power. That obviously should be the mantra of being a journalist to begin with. If your mother tells you she loves you, get a second source. But we just need to remember that. Politicians lie. White Houses lie. Power is an aphrodisiac. And we just need to all remember that and not take at face value anything that we're told.
Where was Jake during the Russia hoax? Where was Jake during Hillary Clinton throwing bleach washing her DVD? Hello?
Megyn Kelly went after him.
To his face.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to see.
He deserved it.
Yeah. Well, if AI doesn't somehow thwart us either electrically, transmissionally, or existentially, we'll be back tomorrow on Wake Up Missouri. We'll see.
Or not.
I know you'll have to tune in and see. Thanks for being here.
Bye.